welcome to Joshua's and Tasha's balcony. We're not going to throw anything off the balcony today, but we're going to talk about a few things that we could tuck and throw off the balcony. We're going to talk about some retro gaming today. Well, retro gaming, current gaming, pretty much anything. But we're going to mainly talk about retro gaming today. Some opinions, some facts, some ideas, and some issues that we might have with the current generation of video games. So basically what we did is we wrote down a couple questions that we got for each other, and maybe some of them might be surprises, maybe some of them might be things that I have planned to answer to. Some of them might even be shocking. So I'm Joshua, this is Tasha, and we're going to talk a little bit about miming.
Yes.
Okay.
Hello.
So let's talk a little bit about some opinions here now that we've completely non-rehearsed. This will be a total shock to each other. First question.
We've never talked about video games before.
What are some of the, or maybe the hardest game that you've ever played? The hardest game you've ever played?
That's possibly one of the hardest questions you could ask, because, I don't know, like, I can think of games that were really, really hard because they were really crappy games. Batman Forever comes to mind.
Yes, that was a crappy game.
I hated that game. I remember playing Boy and His Blob way back in the day, the old Boy and His Blob.
Yeah.
And I thought it was ridiculously hard, but I just had no idea what I was doing. I rented it from Lincoln Video, our local video store, and I had no clue. I had no clue what I was doing, and I had read about the game players, and I was like, oh, this is going to be awesome. I love the concept. I love how it's all and then I played it, and there were no bad guys almost. Like, there were lots of ways to die, but they were all really dumb ways to die. But
I think ways you can classify a game as being really hard or really difficult too is ways you can look at it like a game is so frustrating right off the bat that you only put like 5 to 10 minutes into it and you're like, this sucks, I hate this control, I hate the way game plays, it's too hard, I don't even want to ever get into it, and then you just turn it off.
Super Ghouls and Ghosts, for me. I mean, I know a lot of people love it.
I love Super Ghouls and Ghosts. I think that's a great game, and it is very difficult. Probably one of the more difficult games out there, but if you stick to it, it's actually a lot easier than Ghouls and Ghosts or Ghosts and Goblins.
They both are just the same.
Yeah, they're very difficult games. But for me, also really hard games would be a game that you can get really far into, and say you get to like the last stage, and it's just crazy difficult. Like Ninja Gaiden, some of the last levels in Ninja Gaiden are insanely hard. I even think like the level 8 in Super Mario 3 is really hard.
That's hard.
To the point of like...
But it's fair. It's a ramp up. Like, it starts well, not easy, but fairly easy, and then it gets harder.
Yeah.
And I'm okay with that. Like, I'm okay with games starting pretty easy, getting harder and harder and harder. Like, Castlevania 4 had a very good ramp.
Yeah, that had some tougher levels later, for sure. I'd have to go with probably a shooter or two, because shooters are really difficult, and sometimes they have a really high difficulty right off the bat because you have to be sort of experienced with shooting games.
And that's one reason that I was never a big shooter fan.
Yeah.
I play lots of platformers. I play lots of platformers.
Yeah, there was a game that came up with the Dreamcast like 6 or 7 years ago, maybe longer, but I think it was called Border Down. That was really tough, and I think I only got to like the second or third stage, and it's just really, really frustrating. You only get the one continue, and you keep having to start all the way back to the first stage when you die in like the third stage. It was really, really tough, and the levels were really hard. But otherwise, there's another shooter for the TurboGrafx called Image Fight 2 that I can get to the third stage of, but I've literally been playing it like a year and a half now, and I don't seem to either be getting any better or I just can't do it because I can't grasp it. It's just so hard. It's a difficult shooter, and it's just your ship is too big, and the hit section of the ship is even bigger, and one bullet comes too close, and boom, and then you're starting the level over. It's hard. It's really hard. That's a tough one. Otherwise, Ninja Gaiden, the game is playable. It's very, very good controls, very, very good game. But the later levels are so freaking hard that I would rank it that high because of how difficult those levels are.
Mega Man 1. Now, that's a game that I have seen people beat. But that game is hard. It's a hard game. Especially the later levels. Okay, the whole game is hard, but still. I mean...
If you're not used to Mega Man games, though, they're all hard.
Yeah, but Mega Man 1 is just really extra.
Oh, I agree. There's no password feature, too, right?
It's...
Right? You can't... Like, when you die...
It's been a long time since I played it, but yeah.
So, yeah, those are all very good hard games. Some games are so crappy and awful, though, that you just never want to play them anymore. Batman and Forever.
Batman.
Yeah, there's lots of really bad games. Superman 64 for the Nintendo 64 is awful. Matter of fact, half of the Nintendo 64 catalog are really difficult games.
Go with that.
They're really hard. I mean, they're the hardest games on my eyes, and with the controller that has like 7 analog sticks.
Shadows of the Empire,
I think there's like 17 buttons labeled C. I think that's really hard to figure out how to play. That and Jaguar, I don't know, it's a toss-up. The N64 controller, the Jag controller are both really bad.
Here we're getting into something that we have a very large disagreement about. I think the N64 controller, for me, was the best controller ever made. It is the most comfortable for my hands. I understand, yes, the analog stick being down here and the D-pad being up here are not so great. They fixed that
with the GameCube controller. Yes.
But just the sheer comfort of the grips on the N64 controller was so awesome.
But what about those
and it still had all the buttons you need.
But what about those that grew up with video games? And had controllers that were really good.
Let's go play Mega Man 2 and we'll talk.
Alright. Alright. So, okay, we've discussed the hardest games for a while. How about some more, hopefully less touchy subjects? Like, what are some obvious favorites of yours? Like obvious, everyone loves this game, and here I do too, and here's
Mega Man 2. It's perfect.
Okay.
I mean, Mega Man 3 is also awesome, but I think Mega Man 2 has the edge in the music. Mega Man 2's music is
pretty sweet.
Possibly the best video game music ever in anything ever.
Yeah, I do love
And just the whole game is just really fun. And I can just go and play that, pick it up and play it anytime, and it's awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. Also, Secret of Mana.
Secret of Mana. That's not to be confused with Legend of Mana for the PlayStation 1.
Or Sword of Mana, or
Children of Mana.
Secret of Evermore. None of those. Secret of Mana. It's, lots of people like it. It's not quite as well known as, say, Final Fantasy.
Well, in Japan, the series was pretty popular.
Yeah, and just the United States.
Yes, no, I agree. Obviously, it's
United States.
Square made it. That was like 1993, and that was actually a sequel to Final Fantasy Adventure, which we did get in the States, but we never did get the third one, which was in Japan, Seiken Densetsu 3, I believe. Secret of Mana 2. It's like, no, US doesn't like that. We don't need that. Could have you really used that? That would have been amazing.
But again, that game has amazing music.
The music's really good.
Amazing music.
So music is a big driving factor for you. Like, if a game has really good music, that can tip it over the scales from being
definitely
a poor
helps.
game to a really great game.
It definitely helps. No, not a poor game, but it can take a good game to a great game.
Okay.
Poor games are just poor games. If they're not fun to play, then who cares?
Okay.
But I think music is important and definitely an underrated factor in games, especially a lot of modern games.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
There's video games nowadays don't even have original soundtracks.
Yeah.
For the most part. I actually blame that a lot on, Tony Hawk games, because that brought a lot of, just general rock music into it.
Yeah.
And there was no original music.
Crazy Taxi.
Okay.
Oh. Yeah.
Yeah, but that's fun. That
Yeah, I know,
that
but
game
it's
got
on repeat.
That
yeah.
game brought Offspring to the map. If it wasn't for that game, nobody would know what Offspring is.
No.
Okay, so obvious favorites. For me, I would say some of my absolute obvious favorites. Looking at, how about Sega? And maybe they're not the most obvious, maybe they're not the most popular games, but for me, I think they're right out there in front of everybody's face. And if you don't know what the game is, then you're a schmuck. But like Gunstar Heroes on the Genesis is basically, honestly, it's like a mix of Mega Man and Contra. It's a 2-player simultaneous, similar in some aspects to like Metal Slug, but the gameplay and the strategy is just amazing. It is probably the perfect action game. Gunstar Heroes for Genesis. And I know they tried to make a sequel for the Game Boy Advance, and I do have that, and it's a fairly decent game, but it's just not even in the same league. Gunstar Heroes had a lot of different style of levels. There was one level that was like a board game where you had to roll dice and you go around this level, board game. And if you got to the end, then you beat the level, but if you actually hit down the slide, you have to go back to the beginning, and just genius stuff. They had levels where they had gravitational little things that you're riding on. If you jumped twice, you were on the ceiling and you had to shoot bad guys and you had to jump back down, and a lot of stuff that just was never seen before that game. And the graphics that the Genesis was able to pull off with that thing, I didn't even think was capable. It looked better than most Super Nintendo games. Just amazing. Okay, Gunstar Heroes, love that game. I think a lot of people love that game. Then also another one that's very popular, Super Mario World. It's one of the best games ever created. Period.
It's good.
It's a beautiful, beautiful game.
It's easy though.
It is easy, but that's what's part of the charm of it is the difficulty.
The special zone.
The difficulty.
Yeah.
The difficulty comes from like trying to unlock all 96 worlds.
And those
Things
special
like that.
zone. The special zone is a.
It's an obvious game. I mean, there's so many games that I could just rattle off that are super popular, but those two I'd like to mention as obvious favorites of mine that are very popular. How about an obscure favorite? Something that maybe not everyone thinks about all the time.
Well,
or maybe nobody's even heard of.
See, I've got several that can go under this category. I think first would be Princess Tomato and the Salad Kingdom for the NES. Not everybody knows about it.
Mm-hmm.
Many people that do will go. But it's a weird game, and yeah, it's just a point-and-click adventure, basically. It's nothing.
It looked like it was like really shoved close too.
Door just got closed on us.
Yes.
But yeah,
Princess Tomato.
Princess Tomato.
Very cool.
It's a silly like kids game, but it actually still makes me laugh, and it's ridiculous, and I enjoy that.
That's
And
awesome.
then there's others though. It's like there's 2 Mario games that I think are underrated, and they're never on. Everybody's like, yeah, favorite Mario list. I love Mario 3 and I love Mario World. That's what everybody says. Everybody says that.
Mario 64.
And I love
Wow.
Spider.
I love Spider.
I love Spider. It's a jumping spider.
Is it?
Yeah.
They like really jump around, don't they? Oh my god, that's creepy. He's coming for me.
Don't worry, he'll go that way.
I hope so.
It's fine, it's just a little spider. So anyway, Mario 2. Super
yes.
Mario Brothers 2. The NES. I adore that game. I am so sad that we never got a sequel that played anything like it.
Yeah.
Because I honestly absolutely love the game, and Princess rules. Sorry, Luigi fans.
Toad. Luigi. There are no Luigi.
I know a bunch of Luigi fans.
Luigi
It's
was
all
awful to play
about.
as.
See, and everybody has their own personal opinion on that one. I'm a princess person.
And that is amazing.
Because she jumps normally, but then she floats. Oh yeah.
Yeah, it is pretty amazing. When you play it as different characters, it's pretty much an entirely different experience.
Yeah.
And that's what's sweet about it. I like to play as Toad because he's just the quickest.
And I like princess because jumping normally and floating. The floating.
And she's a girl.
And the original version, she had brown hair too, and then in the
All-Stars version?
All-Stars version, suddenly she was a blonde.
Yeah.
I was so unhappy about that.
Yeah.
I was really grouchy. I'm like, yes, a brown-haired princess. Because, you know, at that time, all the Disney princesses were all blonde-haired. But, yeah.
Yes.
No one. But then also in the Super Mario series, kind of, although not really, Yoshi's Story.
Nice.
I think that it is terribly underrated. I honestly think it's one of the best games. It's creative. I love the controls. I love how it's played. The bosses are amazing. The graphics are so great. The size of the bosses in that game was crazy when we saw it, because all of a sudden they were these giant things taking up almost the entire screen.
It was definitely a different course, a different concept to the game. It did not play like Super Mario World 1.
No, it didn't.
But that game was titled Super Mario World 2, Yoshi's Island. And to me, I loved the game, and I thought the graphics and the FX chip special effects were amazing, and everything looked great about it. But it was, and I say I love the game, but I should really say that I really, really liked the game.
See?
Because, like, I love Mario 2, and I love Mario 3, and I love Mario World, but, like, Mario World 2 came out, and I just...
Mario, but here's the thing.
You get hit, and all of a sudden you hear the baby
Super
screaming.
Mario Brothers, Super Mario 2. Completely different things. Different controls, different gameplay. Same thing. Super Mario World 2, Yoshi's Island.
Yep.
Completely different. But
That
that's
is true.
Okay.
It is true, yeah.
I love
It was a
it.
different
I
style,
love
it was a
that
different type of game, and they introduced a lot of really, really great stuff.
And that is I read it. We read a poll in some game magazine. I don't know if it was EGM or whatever.
I think it was Game Informer. On the back of Game Informers, they have that retro stuff on the bottom where they ask a bunch of questions and ooh, how retro are you or whatever. And one of the questions was,
what Mario game has the largest Bowser?
Yeah.
And I don't remember what they said the answer was.
I think
but
they said
were
it was
wrong.
Mario 64.
They were wrong because it's Yoshi's Story. Or
Yoshi's Island.
Sorry,
they
Yoshi's Story.
didn't even have that.
We won't talk about Yoshi's Story. Yoshi's
hate
Island
Yoshi's
because Bowser in that game, at the end of the game, is 15 times bigger than your screen.
Yeah, they didn't even have that as an option.
Ooh.
There was no Mario World 2 Yoshi's Island as an option.
No,
It was
of
like
course.
Mario 64,
Nobody remembers
New Super Mario Brothers, and whatever.
Nobody remembers it. And it's a great game.
Yeah, it is. It seems like when it came out, it was very popular, but it never, Nintendo never, kept it fresh in everyone's minds. They were like, oh, yeah, there's that one game.
And a lot
But here, let's talk about Super Mario 3, or...
Yeah.
It was weird.
So,
So.
I mean, they're not super obscure, but those are some of my less popular
Okay.
favorites.
Okay. And I don't know if you guys know me. Yes, let's talk about me. No. If you guys know me, I'm a really huge TurboGrafx nerd. So I could go on and on about all these different games that I think are amazing, that are obscure, that no one's heard of. But I'll just talk about one TurboGrafx game that I thought was completely left off the map. And I'm a huge point and click adventure nerd. I loved Loom and the old Indiana Jones games and Monkey Island, those type of games for the old DOS, early console games, Maniac Mansion, stuff like that. But there was a couple on the TurboGrafx that were really amazing, and one of my absolute favorites is Beyond Shadowgate. And I was a really huge fan of Shadowgate for the NES. I thought it was the creepiest game. I just loved it. I had nightmares about it when I play it. And when I found out a technical absolute sequel was coming out, and it was only for the TurboGrafx on Super CD, I was absolutely hooked. And I got it a few months after it came out through Turbo Zone Direct. And I bought it, brought it home, and I believe it took me 2 years to figure out all of the different tricks to that game. And I finally got through it, and it's just, I love it. I would play it once annually a year for the rest of my life, if I had a copy. But I don't have a copy right now. But I'm working on that. But
I absolutely loved it. I thought it was so good. The music's perfect. The graphics are amazing. There's cinemas, there's talking, there's hilarious scenes. It's like a really dark storyline, and they never failed to throw in comedy. Like, there was just so much funny stuff that would happen in there, even like some of the deaths. And there were hundreds of ways to die in that game. You stick your hand in a hole, and there's like these like larvae that start climbing up your arm and eating your skin, and you just... Or you grab onto this sword that's stuck into an old dinosaur skeleton, and you pull on it, and it zaps you, and your face peels off your skull, and it splats up against the screen and goes... It's just hilarious. And then Grim Reaper comes out, and he's like, yep, here I am again. And it's great. It's just a great game. Beyond Shadowgate, I love it. It's just amazing. I wouldn't say it's my favorite TurboGrafx game, but it's very obscure, and people hardly know about it. I'm sure it goes for far too many monies on the eBay. Far too much on eBay. So, if you got a copy and you want to sell it cheap, here's this guy. Here's another good one. Obscure as hell. Virtual Boy Wario Land. That
Virtual Boy
game is amazing. It plays like a really good mix of a lot of Mario World pieces into it, but the Wario Land part of it, I never was a huge fan of the Wario Land games for the Game Boy and the Game Boy Advanced, but this Wario Land for the Virtual Boy is amazing. The way that they really took that 3D aspect and really played tricks with your mind. You see things gravitating from the foreground to the background and back and forth, and things are coming, and bad guys are swimming in the background, they go through a little tube, and all of a sudden they're in the foreground, you gotta smack them. Really, really good stuff. I love the music in that game. I thought the graphics were excellent. Yes, it's only in black and red, but if you're a fan at all of the Virtual Boy, which I really dug the Virtual Boy, I thought it was really fun. It's by and large the best game for that system. It's so excellent, and I would recommend it to just about anybody. I think it's one of my top 100 games.
That's a good obscure.
I love that. Virtual Boy Wario Land. It's a really, really good game. Really fun stuff, and those are my two selections for obscure games. Virtual Boy Wario Land and Beyond Shadowgate.
So, here's a question. What games do you play that you don't really want to talk to anybody about? What's your guilty pleasure?
Ooh, a guilty pleasure game. Well, I really like... I do enjoy some puzzle games. Puzzle games meaning like strategy games like a Dr. Mario puzzle or a Tetris puzzle game where you're putting things together. Well, it's not super embarrassing, but I don't necessarily go to the bar and say, hey,
I just kicked some butt in Dr. Mario.
I just spent 4 hours playing Panic Bomber.
Then again, do you really do that with, say, Mario
With Beyond Shadowgate?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Hey, I just played 17 hours straight of Beyond Shadowgate and I'm still lost. Like, no, yes, I do that. But, okay, one that I really loved was Panic Bomber, and it came out for the Super NES, and I think it came out for the I know it came out for the TurboGrafx, that's what I have it for. And it came out for a few other things. I think even recently, in the last, 5 years, it came out for the PSP also, so I'm on the lookout for that. I want to get a copy of that. But I really loved Panic Bomber. Oh, and for the Virtual Boy. It came out for the Virtual Boy. We got that. It's very fun. But it's basically like a Dr. Mario / Tetris type game where you have little Bomberman heads, and you just gotta match up the colors, and then they throw bombs down every once in a while, and you gotta match up things, and the bigger explosions that you make and the more combos that you get, the more damage you do to your opponent. So it's like there's one column of colors, and then there's another column of colors, and you're doing stuff, and you can, when you get a huge combo or a huge explosion, then it goes to the other guy, and then it just puts a whole bunch of crap on their screen, and whoever gets to the top, then you lose. So like, you're trying to beat the other guy. It's a little bit sort of like Gem Fighter or Pocket Fighter.
Puzzle Fighter.
Puzzle Fighter. Super Puzzle Fighter 2 Turbo, yes. You're really good at that. I suck at that game. But it's a little bit like that, and I really like that one too, but I really love Panic Bomber, and whenever I find a new version of it, I always geek out over it, and I literally play it for hours and hours on it. And I got really good at it for a while. I could run right through the TurboGrafx version from beginning to end, and it was a lot of fun.
Since that's not that embarrassing.
Well, it's not necessarily so much a guilty pleasure. It's not like I'm playing Barbie Happy Time.
That would have been a
Barbie Tropical Princess or anything. I don't like that game. I've tried to get into it, but I just can't. But I'd say Panic Bomber is a guilty pleasure. I'll play it. If it's like, oh, I have an hour to play games, Ooh, I haven't played Lords of Thunder in years. Oh, I haven't played Legend of Xanadu, like, ever. But let's put in Panic Bomber. So I can just sit and let my mind melt while I watch the colors and drool all over myself. So, Panic Bomber. Panic Bomber. That's my choice for guilty pleasure. How about you? What's your guilty pleasure that you don't want anyone out there to know about?
See, my guilty pleasure is a little more guilty than yours. It's not Barbie Tropical Island or whatever that is. It's not that. It's Enchanted Arms.
Oh my gosh.
For the Xbox 360 and for the PlayStation 3.
Yes, Enchanted Arms. Now that was a game that everybody was really excited about because it was a sequel to Wild Arms and Thousand Arms.
It had nothing to do with anything else. It's a standalone, by itself, as far as I know, game. And a lot of people have a lot of problems with it.
Why?
Because it has a lot of gay themes.
Oh, yes.
Not like there aren't other games, like that for, say, the TurboGrafx from Japan. But,
Nikki. Yes. Well, okay, I can just set that one. That's fun.
There you go. That's a little better. But the game is so campy and funny.
Yeah.
Like, it takes all the usual, like, you expect all these things to happen in every RPG. And it does them, but it also makes fun of itself while it's doing it. So, like, the one girl falls in love with the main character, but he stays oblivious to it. Even, like, after she tells him straight out, pretty much.
Yeah.
He still is oblivious. He maintains his complete idiocy and obliviousness throughout. He never wakes up to it. It never is resolved. He's an idiot, and he stays an idiot. It takes all of those things that always are in every single RPG, and it just puts them.
Yeah.
And I really, really like that. And the voice acting from the English-speaking actors is very humorous.
Yeah.
Like, they knew that they were doing something ridiculous, and that was okay.
Yeah.
Now, here I have to say that the PlayStation version is actually a little more...
Blu-ray?
it's more, not intense,
Interactive.
obvious than the Xbox
Really?
version. In the PlayStation version, in order to power up your special abilities in battle, you can go into this special land where you dance, and it's all rainbows all around you, and you're disco dancing, and you shake the controller to shake the controller. Yeah, and he dances and he powers up. But that's only in the PlayStation one. You can't do that it's not in the Xbox.
Interesting.
It was because they had the 6-axis controller.
Yes.
And it's really funny.
I wonder if there's a downloadable content that's Kinect compatible. That's important.
But that game would have to be my guilty pleasure. It's silly but it's fun. I like it.
Yeah. I did notice that when you're playing that game, that it does have a lot of visuals that are really comparable to like Final Fantasy. I actually really dig the battles.
The combat system is awesome.
Because it's not just your characters against their characters. It actually reminds me a little bit more of Lunar in the Sega CD, where when you have to move to attack, you have to get into position, and you can see where you're attacking and things like that I really enjoyed. It was like a mix of strategy, war game, or strategy RPG with a regular traditional RPG.
Yeah.
And it has real thick anime style storyline characters.
Just
Yeah, it's kind of a shame that more people don't know about that, but I think you could find it for either the PS3 or the 360 for under $10.
Probably.
So,
it's a good game.
if you want to try it.
It's a really long game, too. That's the other thing. It's a very long game.
I think it's got very annoying battle music, but...
The battle music gets old, and a couple of the places that you go, the music is painful. And this is a game where I'll put up with some music is really good in it, but some music is
not so good.
Not so good.
Not so good.
But I'll put up with it because the game itself is really fun.
Okay. Cool.
So, there you go. That's my guilty pleasure.
Enchanted Arms. Alright, so now that we've talked about some guilty pleasures, how about what would be And this doesn't have to be like the end all your answer, and this is how you're going to stick to your answer for the rest of your life. But what would be your favorite series of all time? Like, of all video games? And this is tough because I always looked at certain series that would be like, you know, during, you know, 1987 to like 1994, and like say that's the most perfect series ever. Then you realize that since 1994 it kept going, and all the games since have been really shitty, and you're like,
Castlevania.
yeah, the Castlevania games have been pretty rough.
It's like, yeah, you know, this I think about. It's like Mega Man, but wait, after 3.
Well, it's not to say that the Nintendo games up to 6 were bad. I would say that 7 for the Super Nintendo was probably the worst out of the first 7. It was pretty terrible.
It
was like X
after,
minus
for me,
all
it
the
was
cool
like
stuff.
after 3, it was not so good till they got to 9. You know,
Yeah.
it was.
8 was interesting. 8 was weird. I didn't like 8 so much.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah. Mega Man.
so it's like good, bad.
Could you say Mega Man?
So let's say I can't say Mega Man
Okay, can't say Mega Man.
because of that. I have to go with Zelda. There's only one Zelda game that I don't like. Wind Waker.
Yes. And we're not considering Wand of Gamelon and the Adventures of Zelda for the CDI to be considered actual CDI, or I'm sorry, actual Zelda.
Those are not Zelda games. Those are
They were Zelda games,
very entertaining, but in a different way.
yeah, they're not Nintendo releases, so they're not going to be considered part of the series.
Yeah.
But we're talking, let's see, Zelda 2, Link to the Past, Ocarina of Time, Majora's Mask, Wind Waker, Twilight Princess, Skyward Sword, which I've not really...
Even Four Swords.
Oh yeah, Four Swords Adventures. The Four Swords for the GameCube was actually a lot of fun. And I love the Top View Zelda games a lot. Those were really good. The Game Boy games, Oracle of Ages, Oracle of Seasons, Link's Awakening. Those were really good games too. The Minish Cap was really good too from Game Boy Advance.
I think all the, like
Those are
some
really
of my, they're all good. Like Link to the Past.
Yeah.
Mwah, perfection.
Yeah.
And you know, I've got a soft spot in my heart for Majora's Mask. I think Majora's Mask is another like Mario 2 and Super Mario World 2, where it's the sequel to a really, really popular game, and it does things different.
Yeah.
But I love Majora's Mask. Majora's Mask is great. It's awesome. It's different, but it's awesome. And at least it's still long. That's the one problem with the more modern Zelda games, especially Wind Waker. Very short. Wind Waker, notwithstanding CDI.
There's a lot of people
games.
that love the Wind Waker. Okay, the CDI games we won't count because they're technically were not created by Nintendo.
I know some people love Wind Waker, but some people are not me. I like my games to last longer than about 8 hours.
Well,
Call me crazy.
I'm not even sure if Link to the Past is 8 hours.
You can play all the way through Link to the Past, and it'll take you, maybe, if you don't do anything extra, maybe it'll take you 8 hours, but you have to know everything you're doing already.
Yeah.
And that's on a replay. I played through Wind Waker the first time, and it took me less than a day. It made me so angry.
Yeah, that's...
Like, that game made me so angry.
But it was beautiful, and it was very fun while it lasted.
No, I'd say
Twilight Princess.
Princess. That was beautiful. That was a beautiful game.
Longer game.
It was somewhat longer. It was darker. It was not.
It was the sequel to Ocarina of Time that everybody's
But-
waiting for.
See, Majora's Mask I loved too, but that's the same kind of thing with Mario 2 and
Yeah.
Super Mario World 2. Majora's Mask changed everything up, but it's awesome. It's such a good game. Like it's a different way of thinking. Like the actual controls of the game are the same.
Yep.
But you have to think about everything differently, and I really, really like that.
Yes.
I really like that game. So yeah, I'd have to go with Zelda. Like, Link to the Past by itself.
It's such a good game.
Oh.
It really is. It really is. And there's a lot of other really good series, but they're just that. They're just really good. There's been some that have had huge, big Kyle's a donkey to do in recent years that are just terrible, and like Sonic the Hedgehog. Sonic the Hedgehog, I loved the 16-bit games, and I loved Sonic Adventure 1 and 2 for the Dreamcast, but man alive, they can't seem to make a good Sonic game to save their lives now.
Not to be, angry, but Mario. Once upon a time, Mario was a beautiful thing. Now, a Mario game comes out, I'm like,
Well, there's a lot of Mario games. I mean, you gotta... If the Super Mario Brothers went to Super Mario World, and then Super Mario World went to Mario 64, and then Mario 64 went to Sunshine.
Exactly.
Then what was the current... Now what is...
Galaxy?
Galaxy. And those are good games.
Sunshine.
Sunshine is pretty... I wouldn't say it's a bad game, but it sure was not
I'm
the
not
same
saying that
level.
Galaxy is necessarily bad games. They're just
Galaxies.
the exact same thing over again. I mean,
Well,
yeah, okay, it's got the twist of gravity's a little different, haha, but it's the same gameplay that I was playing back in Mario 64. Like,
Yeah, no, it's totally
got
is,
pretty,
yeah.
it's prettier,
Yeah.
and the gravity is more fun. But other than that, it's Mario 64 all over again, and
With waggle controls.
that was a fun. Oh, I hate that. Now, I will say the Paper Mario games I love.
Yeah, Paper Mario.
Those are great. That's a really
There
good
maybe not
series.
even been a bad one of those.
I don't think there has been.
Those
Those are great games.
There's
Those are
technically
great
3 of
games.
those right now. Paper Mario.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, Paper Mario's a
Good games.
good series.
Good
I think you
games.
consider that a series. You could consider the Mario Parties a series. I wouldn't consider that as a good series, but a lot of different Mario games in our series. Mario Kart.
I love the original Mario Kart.
Yes, I love
Whoa.
Super Mario Kart's amazing.
Huh.
I did not like Mario Kart 64.
Exactly.
I love Double Dash, though.
I don't know. I didn't really play Double Dash much
it's
because I was
so
just
fun.
like,
It's so fun. Double Dash is great. Mario Kart Wii is pretty good too. But then again, it's just pretty good. So, well, anyway, we're getting sidetracked a little bit. So I would say one of my favorite series would be like Castlevania and King of Fighters. I'd even go as far as say Virtua Fighter. I've never had a problem with that. You obviously you can see that I really like fighting games. Street Fighter. Those have been all good games. Really. Maybe notwithstanding Street Fighter the movie.
that reminds me.
That's not bad.
Going all the way back to the obscure
Yes.
favorites. Tournament Fighters for the Super Nintendo. TMNT Tournament Fighters.
Yes, that is a good one. And you are specifically saying the Super Nintendo
Specifically.
edition, not the Genesis edition.
Really not the
The Genesis one is an absolute crap pile. It is
Not
horrible
the NES
fighting game.
version.
NES game, I think I'm fine with. I think the way that they
For the
did it
NES, it's about as
on
good
the
as it
NES,
gets
I
for
mean, the
fighting
Nintendo was
game.
not made to make 2D fighting games. They had 3D dimensional floors, pretty decent graphics, good music. I would give it a passing grade. I'd say
It's for,
good
for,
job, nice
for
try.
how many buttons they had to work with,
Yeah,
they really...
it was a nice try, and the one for Super NES is amazing, but the Genesis one is an absolute abomination. It's just terrible, and it does not reflect what the Genesis can do, because the Genesis could easily have done Tournament Fighters correctly, but holy shit, is that a bad game? It's a bad game.
It's terrible.
Well, okay. Now that we're getting close to about 40 minutes here of chit chat, how about we end it on one last question?
Okay,
Last
what we
question. To end off our off the balcony session this afternoon, a genre that you miss the most with the current generation of video games. Now, current gen, if you're watching this video in the year 2070 or something, current gen is like the Wii, the PlayStation 3, and the 360. So we're getting a buttload of waggle control party games. We're getting a buttload of first-person shooters. Fighting games are making a comeback. And then there is your run-of-the-mill God of War clones. And I would consider virtually every game that comes out a very similar style of God of War, where you jump into a playing field and it's almost like hack and slash. You just push your punch button 3 times and hit kick or whatever, and it's like whoop, 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 and then their head splats all over. And I just see this happen with so many games nowadays, and it makes me absolutely crazy that people cannot come up with a unique engine to make games anymore. They just take an engine from another game and say, let's just throw Jack Black's voice in this guy, and let's just...
I'd say...
Anyway, a genre that you miss, before I go crazy and rant on some shit.
A genre that's... I mean, I could say really decent 2D platforming. I mean, there are some 2D platformers coming out from independent companies.
Indie developers, and even like the new Mario Brothers Wii.
Yeah, and those are okay, but I miss running and jumping and shooting. Like everything now is there's running and there's jumping, but there's nothing like Mega Man. There's no except for Mega Man.
Except for Mega Man 9 and 10, which were recently.
But they're Mega Man. There's none of that. I will say that it's really cool that some people are being really creative with the 2D/3D platforming, where you switch between the two. That's awesome.
Fez, there's a game for the 360 in it to download. I think it's like $5, and it's called Fez, and yeah, that is amazing.
Like I could complain till I was blue in the face about how all these older genres are gone, but they're not. They seem to be coming back thanks to all the indie developers.
There's a lot of developers out there now.
It makes me so happy that that's happening because if you'd asked me this 5 years ago, I would have complained till I was blue in the face about all the 3D crap. I'm so sick of it.
Yeah, it is a really kind of exciting actually to like go and get a new magazine or go into a game shop, and us, or at least me, being where I loved video games. There was a time and a place when it was like my favorite thing in the universe, and now this stuff that I look at now, I'm like, this is crap, this is crap, this is crap. And now I'm starting to like see a lot more in magazines and online and stuff like, wow, this is really neat stuff. I can't wait to download this demo to try this out. Kind of rejoin the video game race. Like, holy shit, I'm interested in games again. But it is really exciting to see stuff that I'm actually interested in playing again.
It's kind of cool. It just makes me...
Yes.
It's like all those genres that I thought were gone and dead.
They're starting to come back.
Coming back, baby.
So you'd say a traditional 2D platformer?
Traditional 2D platformers, yeah. And just the creativity of gaming back then. No game was like every other game. Like, if you picked up a game, it took you a while to learn it.
Oh, yeah.
You know, you couldn't just pick up a game and play it. Like, now you pick up a 3D game, almost all games
the tutorials
play like other games.
Yeah, and I almost miss games not having a tutorial at the beginning.
But again, the indie games are changing that again.
Games are, yeah, exactly.
Bit Trip Beat.
Yes.
There's a great example of a game, or any of the Bit Trip
Any of the
games.
Bit Trip, the whole series,
That's a great example of gameplay that's totally new, yet sort of old.
Yeah. But
also does a whole new twist on it and is surprisingly difficult. I mean, it is tough, which is nice to see, because that's another problem with modern games, is they're all too freaking easy.
You watch a movie.
You don't have to do anything.
They're interactive movies. As much as people
and not
want
even like really hard interactive movies like Dragon's Lair.
No,
that was a hard interactive movie.
That's a good interactive movie. I'll play that. Or Wirehead. Talking about classic interactive movies here. Steve Whiting. Where's Wirehead 2? Come on. Get with it. We'll direct it. We'll make it. Okay, how about a genre that I miss the most? Well, I got two. One would be the point-and-click adventure games. Classic, there's DOS games, we mentioned a little bit earlier. Loom, like for the Turbo Duo, that came out for DOS. Blah, 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 I can't think, my brain's right now.
Princess Tomato and Salad Kingdom.
Princess Tomato and Salad Kingdom, Shadowgate. Just point-and-click adventure games. You could actually almost say Shadowrun.
King's Quest?
King's Quest, yep, absolutely. King's Quest, Monkey Island, those games, all really good stuff. Anything that used the Scum engine was just amazing back in the old computer days. But yeah, you could almost say Shadowrun for the SNES was a point-and-click adventure RPG. But those kind of games I really do miss. Just a game where it pops you in a room and just says, okay, go look at that, go look at this, try to figure out how to pull this secret latch to get the door to open. Real point-and-click adventure games. I don't know of any that have come out recently, and I really miss those kind of games.
The closest thing I could think of to it was that game that came out that was an internet game where you had to figure out what the next address was that you had to go to find
URL.
the next
that was really cool. Where this is not
that was a game.
That was cool. Well, I heard there is a couple.
Different kind of game.
There was a Zack and Wiki game for the Wii that was supposedly a point-and-click adventure game, and then there's Sam and Max, a new Sam and Max game, which are traditionally point-and-click games for the DOS, or for computer and 3DO back in the day. But that's also another Wii game, and I haven't played either of those, so I have no idea how good they are. But I'm guessing they're geared toward kids, which is, fine. They seem like they're ready to eat for everyone. Yeah, it's bad. But another one that I really do miss also is shooters. And I do not mean first-person shooters. That is, the entire freaking current gen is flooded with that garbage. I don't play any first-person shooters.
I still blame GoldenEye.
I don't play any first-person shooters, so I'm no good at any of those. But I'm talking about shooter games. Some people call them shoot-em-ups, whatever you want to call them. Shooter games. I know that there's tons of shooter games that are out now, but they kind of have this own little, they have this own little, hey buddy, he's awake. Yay. Hey buddy, what's your favorite genre? We were playing Blazing Lasers this morning, so he really likes Blazing Lasers. All the bubble stage, he loved that. No, I'm kidding. He hated that level. I hate that level. Bullet hell. That is something that we see a lot now when people say, oh, I'm going to make a new shooter game. Matter of fact, I was playing a new game and I can't even think of the name of it, but it was done by SNK. And sorry, I cannot remember the name of it. It's some like Magical Witch Neo or something like that. I don't know, I was playing it, and it seemed like it had some decent promise to it, but it just isn't the right type of shooter game. A shooter game is supposed to be, Ikaruga was probably the last amazing shooter game that I played, and that's, over 10 years old already, and that was just an amazing game, where you get a ship, you go onto a stage, and there's strategy involved. You have to figure out how to get to certain things. There's memorization involved. There's dodging of things. Oh crap, I died again. Now I know next time not to go that lane because there's going to be a giant laser coming down. You figure out these things. Bullet hell games just throws as many bullets at you as possible. It's usually anime themes. There's tons of guys dancing around wearing dresses that look like girls, and everybody's like, and shooting out, and then you're shooting billions of lasers. You don't have to click the button down to shoot. You just hold it down, and the screen just looks all pretty, and you never die because your hitbox is that big. It drives me crazy, and they're not very fun. Some of them are great, like Castle Shikigami is really a great shooter game. That's a pretty good bullet hell game. Some of them are done really well. Ikaruga is a really good shooter, bullet hell. But that's something I miss. It's just classic shooter style games. There was one that came out for the 360 called Aegis Wing that I would consider a traditional shoot 'em up. That's very fun. It's a 4-player simultaneous one too, and it's free. If you've got an Xbox 360, it's a free game. Go download it. It starts with A. It's Aegis Wing. A-E-G-I-S Wing. That's a new game. That's the only one that I know of that's a current gen. So I ran to it. But that's something I want to see. I want to see real shooters again, and I don't want to see one a year. I want to see
indie developers, get on that.
Get some shooters out there, and I don't want them to look like Flash games. I want them to actually use sprites. This is what I want. I want this, this, and this, and this, and if it's not going to be that way, I'm going to bitch about it. Because I'll whine about it.
See, I would be really happy. There's something that I miss. It's not a genre. It's a style, and it's cell shade. It's not cell shading. It's not 3D characters with black outlines.
It's animated sprites.
It's actual animation.
Yes.
Animated sprites.
That's something I actually want to show you. There was a new game for the 360 called Skullgirls. I think it's called Skullgirls or Girl Skulls, something like that. But I had played it for a moment or two, and that's real animated sprites, and they are fluid. Really
nice.
Looks pretty, and they're not polygons. They're not cell shaded. They look really great.
Cat's telling us that we're done.
Meowing. So anyway, thank you for allowing us to sit and talk to you about random things and meeting our little guy. This is Duncan. And that's it. We're not going to throw anything off the balcony today. I'm sorry.
Definitely not the baby.
Well, I could throw the dog off the balcony.
No.
Anyway, until next time, hopefully we'll find a game that's terrible enough to throw off the balcony. I'm Joshua, this is Tasha and Duncan. Enjoy the flowers.
Yeah.